everyone. So I'd like to talk to all the people who feel like they're not doing enough during this time. They're not productive enough, they haven't done enough projects, or they haven't, done all the things they wanted to do during this time period. I think there's a lot of guilt and a lot of pressure associated with this period because you read a lot and you see a lot on the internet about how you could be using this time to read all the things you wanted to read and take all the online courses, and then all the stuff that is online that is available that you're just not making use of. And I would just really advise you to just not do that to yourself. Take the pressure off, set your expectations right, because the only thing that you need to be focusing on right now is physical safety as well as psychological safety. Because when the human mind, when faced with a stressor, it usually takes about 6 weeks to adjust to a new normal. That's why the maternity leave usually is 6 weeks. That's why we usually say when the body goes through a surgery or trauma, don't do anything for the first 6 weeks to 2 months. We say that stuff because the body and the mind usually take about 6 weeks to adjust to a new way of being, to adapt to a new way of being. So you don't want to overwhelm the body or the mind during this time, because you are going to feel a lot more stress and then a lot more anxiety and a lot more pressure. So what do you actually need to be doing during this time period in order to have a psychological safety? And that's just a few things. And then it could be, by the way, it's not a hard line at 6 weeks where people are looking at their watch and saying, hey, wait, it's 6 weeks now, I should be adjusted. Because remember, guys, it wasn't like we were all functioning at our optimal pre-COVID, right? Maybe the first couple weeks of COVID, or when you were indoors, you were just recuperating from what happened prior to that, because a lot of us were running on empty at that time. So it does depend on how you were before this. It depends on how many adjustments you've had to make. So for people that are working from home, that have children that they have to homeschool, that have never cooked before and now have had to cook. There are people that have lost their job, or people that have had to take time off, that's unpaid, and made life adjustments as a result of finances. These are all adjustments. So I'm just talking about one stressor at a time. What if all the stressors show up all at once? You're going to want to give yourself maybe a little bit longer than 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks. Just depends on what your resources were and how much you have right now of coping mechanisms to be able to cope with everything, how much support you have during this time, what your mindset is at this time. So I just want to give some time to psychological safety, right? How do you create that? And there are just some bare minimum things that you need to be doing during this time that need to be part of your routine. Number one, I want you to have exercise as part of your routine. Exercise really will give you a sense of control. It's an action, it counteracts fear, but we hold a lot of tension in our body, and we just hold a lot of stress in our body. So when you're moving that body, you're going to be releasing some of that. And there's all kinds of research about how exercise will actually alleviate symptoms of anxiety and depression and give you a sense of control. So exercise, even if it's just 20 minutes a day, should be mandatory at this time period for the whole family. Number two, I really want you to make some time for stillness during your day. A lot of people are just shoving every hour of their day with all kinds of activity and all kinds of to-do lists and all kinds of productivity, and it's just not good. Your mind needs space in order to it to settle. So how do you create a little bit of space in your day? And that could just be 30 minutes in the morning and maybe 30 minutes in the evening where you just don't do anything, where you sip your tea and sort of zone out, look out the window, look at a flame, paint. Anything that's going to still you a little bit is going to be very important. Number three, I'm going to ask you to do some connections consciously. There's a lot of stuff that people are sort of putting out there about how connection is the most important thing at this time. However, if those connections are not conscious connections, and if you're just connecting with people just because of, sheer sort of compulsion to connect, or a fear that if you are by yourself that you might actually lose your mind, then you're probably not connecting consciously. Because remember, guys, where the coronavirus is contagious, Fear and anxiety are far more contagious. Just from one post or one forward that you can get, you can spread fear and anxiety like wildfire. There's a theory called the emotional contagion theory. So protect yourself and have conscious connections. And then lastly, I do believe that human beings need to be productive. They need to feel a sense of accomplishment in their day. So how can you connect? How can you create, some periods of productivity? And that might be that you learn a new recipe for that day, and that's all you do, or that you organize, one of your bookshelves, and that's all you do. But you do need periods of productivity, and that's it. Small chunks, maybe 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, where you're doing some productivity. For people that are not working, and then obviously for people that are working, some focused work where you are actually going in for 30 minutes without distractions and then coming back out, and then 30 minutes of just distraction free and coming back out. So these are just some things that are mandatory for everybody. Everything else, I promise you, once you've adjusted, and we are in this period for the next 2 months or so at least, and once you've adjusted to this, which might take 3 weeks, 4 weeks for you, you will have a surge of energy maybe, or creativity, and then you can do all the things you've wanted to do. But for now, psychological safety should be, and physical safety should be the only two goals that you have for yourself.